Hello, I'm John Hind, Director of Compass Resolution. Today, I have the pleasure and the privilege of talking to Una Archer. Now, Una is a mum, a stepmom, and a psychologist specialising in supporting secure attachment in parent-child relationships. Una helps parents raise emotionally secure children by helping them understand and use the attachment research findings in their day-to-day parenting. Hello, Una, welcome. Good to see you.
Hi, John. So nice to see you.
Good to be talking to you today. I'm looking forward to it.
Me too.
So Una and I will spend about 30 minutes talking about the challenges facing separating parents to support their children during the separation process, when there is so much going on in the parents' own lives to challenge them. So Una, my first question is this: why is it so challenging in your world for parents to focus on their children when they're going through the separation process?
That's such a good question, John. And I think it's really just so helpful to acknowledge that it is challenging because, having gone through separation and having worked with a number of separating parents, I feel like so many of us, we set out with our best intentions to really be there for our children and to do what they need and focus on that. But in reality, it's so hard. It's really, really hard. And I think there are three reasons that make it so difficult. And I believe that every separating parent experiences them to a larger or lesser degree, and maybe sort of different ones come to more to a forefront as the sort of separation continues. And regardless of whether you initiated the separation or whether it was thrust upon you, you still have to deal with those things. So the first one, I would say, is just the grieving the relationship and adjusting to that kind of relational change, because we rely on our primary relationship so much. We get so, even if it's not perfect, even if it's not working so well, we get so many of our needs met in that relationship. And practically, we organize our lives. When you think about it, if you're in a relationship, especially when you have children, there isn't an area in your life that it's not being affected by it. So when that relationship ends, it's a huge adjustment, first of all, emotionally, and we go through that grieving process that is so consuming for us. And then practically, of course, because we have to renegotiate our lives. So that's the first thing that I would say that makes it really difficult to be there for our children.
And just on that point, it's so, isn't it? So it might be a small thing, but just acknowledging that to the parents we're working with, because they're in it themselves, and actually to be able to recognize for themselves that period of adjustment, all the challenges, they need to remind themselves actually what they're having to cope with, the stress and so on, and that can be empowering in itself. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Sorry, I cut you off. I cut you off a bit. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I really wanted to be back and forth because I
Okay.
value and appreciate your opinion. I know you have so much experience in this area. So the second thing I would say, it's what often happens. We're not just grieving the relationship that's ending, but it brings us close to our old wounds, especially if sometimes there are obvious things, like we grew up in a household organized with addiction and we experience that neglect or abandonment, or even if seemingly things were okay, we still accumulate those wounds and hurts along the way. So when relationship ends, often we're brought so much closer to them. And then of course it's something that we have to deal with or not, but definitely experience, and kind of it can compound the emotions and the hurts that we experience in this time. And of course, when we go through it, it's really hard to be present and focus on the children.
Reliving those experiences are often buried, often suppressed, often managed over years and years, suddenly triggered, relived, as you say, just adds to the pressures these separating parents are under. There's a lot going on for them.
Yes. And then if that wasn't enough, I think another thing is that often when we're bringing up children in a couple with a partner, we just kind of get used to doing certain jobs and we have a certain role. And, there's area of parenting that I'm comfortable with, that I know it's kind of more my patch. And then the partner is kind of taking care of other things. And, it can be kind of have more overlaps or less. And again, so both emotionally and practically. And then all of a sudden, when you find yourself on your own with the children, you have to cover everything. And then you have to learn all those other things that you might have relied on your partner for. And again, adding on already, and I'm not even mentioning the practicalities of setting up a new home if you have to do it. And so then on top of that, you have to quite quickly learn those other things that you were relying on your partner in the past.
As well as having to find some way to manage the fallout, the emotional fallout, the trauma of separating from the emotional separation from that fact, the need, which is what my world actually, because I'm working with these couples I call in conflict. They're trying to reformat, if you like, their relationship from one of marriage, what we're talking about, together, sharing the parenting, sharing the household, establishing all those patterns that we've talked about, and the massive adjustment then from the mother, or if it is a mother, having to do the main caring, and having to reformat that relation, replacing a marriage that hasn't worked for various reasons with a co-parenting, functioning relationship that is going to work in the long term, in the best interest of the children, of course, and for the parents. All that's a massive challenge, massive ask for parents. And here you are in your world, and here I am in our world, helping these parents do that. And I guess one of the keys to helping parents is helping them to understand for themselves what's going on for them, what's going on for each other, and what's going on for the children as well. And that's very much your world as well. Yeah. Can you talk a little bit more about that actually? So at the moment we're talking about, I think to some extent, helping the parents understand what's going on for themselves, i.e. this period of adjustment. I mean, in a moment we'll talk about helping them perhaps understand a little bit more about the impact of separation on the children and so on. But we've got a few minutes, I think, still to talk about this. And can you think of anything that you think would be great for separating parents that you kind of work with to hear, that might really kind of help them to in a really challenging emotional time for them? Just a few things that you might, I don't know, that immediately spring to mind. You think it'd be really good for them to hear this.
So what springs to mind when you say that, how we often hear that it takes 2 years to adjust to separation and find your feet, find your new normal. And initially you might feel like, why is it so long? And for some it takes less time, for some it takes more. But I think it makes so much sense when we look at the complexity of this transition, that it would take so long. And to really advice would be to give yourself time, because often you can find yourself rushing to, okay, I need to set up this new life and I want to get on. I think it's much gentler and kinder way of going about it. Just give yourself time. You don't have to do everything at once. And also have support. You don't have to do everything at once, and you don't have to do everything yourself. So that's what comes.
It's such a great tip, and it is a constant theme when I'm working with my mediation clients of parents. I often say to them, it is important, that time, to give yourself that time, that space to adjust, to learn the new reality that you're living in, to create, reshape the future, the new reality, and to give each other time, which comes from creating some time to understand what's going on for each other as well. This new relationship we're talking about, having to create this new co-parenting relationship out of something that hasn't worked, and that, of course, the absolute key to that is the self. Who am I bringing into this relationship, and how can I support? And again, I know we're going to talk about that as well. How can I support the other person to bring their best self into this, so that we, the new relationship, the new can look after our children? Time and all that. People do so often want to rush that, don't they? They want to go, let's get a parenting plan, let's plans are really important. But I have to say to people, let's just think about maybe it will help you to think about the next few weeks, next weekend, the next few months, maybe. Often people say, no, I want to know what it looks like in 2 years' time. Well, it may not look like you think it's going to, and so on. So I think that time element, time and space, is so important to healing and to understanding. Absolutely. Children. Should we go on to talk about a little bit about the children? They're at the centre of all this, aren't they? Of course, and that's what both of us are helping the parents to do: look after themselves, yes, so they can look after their children. Can I ask you to talk a little bit to our viewers about, I don't know, some of the kinds of impacts that on children that their parents separating can have on them? Just can we talk about that a bit? Help us understand a little bit about it, a bit of insight into the effects on the children, depending on the age, of course.
Yes. So, of course, it's a big topic, and I will go into a lot of detail. But I think that a couple of things that kind of hopeful messages for parents is that we're looking at outcomes for children. The research shows that processes are more important than structures. And excuse the jargon, but I think it's helpful to have those terms. So I'm going to explain what I mean by that.
Mm-hmm.
So when we look at processes, we'll look at what's happening in the relationship. How am I present with my child? How, are we navigating the differences and the conflicts? So it's that kind of a relational quality, if you like.
Mm-hmm.
So these are the processes.
Mm-hmm.
And the structure is it a nuclear family? Is it a single parent family? Is it a blended family? Is it grandparents raising children? So processes is more important than the structure. If processes are working, children have better out. So for example, if the relationships are nurtured and good, children have better outcomes in a blended family, for example. That can be really complex for children to go through separation, to go through another adjustment of, becoming a part of a new family. So children would have better outcomes than children in a nuclear family where, there's ongoing conflict and the rest of it.
So are we talking about here, and just another way of approaching it, what's most important are how the children's core needs are being met within whatever structure those are being met. It's about them being, of course, the parents' core needs being met as well, so they can parent the children, but we're talking about children here. And so I guess one of the core needs is security, love and security. And so the question, again, I can invite you to talk about this a little bit. Are we as professionals helping the parents focus on the question, what do the children need from each of you and both of you together to ensure that they feel as secure as possible in the given situation, whatever the structure? Is that kind of a fair summary?
Yeah.
And how may you go about that? I mean, just again, a massive topic, but we just talked about partly, but focusing the parents on, helping them to focus on and understand the importance of the children's
Mm.
security. Just some, again, give some ideas really, or some approaches, how we might to do that when if you're working with a parent. Some examples of why process is more important than structure. I mean, they're both important, but actually process before structure, in terms of, I guess, behaviors. You know, how as a parent meeting the child's needs, and that's why I guess the how is the process. The structure could be, the family could take many different forms, of course, and many of those are very fit for purpose for the kids. They're suitable. Yeah. So I mean, so I understand that distinction. Just some ideas though, really, in terms of what you see with some of the children and the parents you're working with, and maybe some examples of how those parents have made a shift and done things that have really helped the children. Let's give some, I don't know, some few little tips really we can talk about. Key things for the parents to be doing for the kids, or how to help them.
Yes. So that's where attachment theory comes really handy, because it spells out what are those needs that children have. And you know how we spoke about when you're managing so much, then when you think about being there for your child, it can feel a little bit like going in the supermarket without a shopping list, and like, oh, you know, which aisle do I go first? What do I get? But when you have the list of attachment needs, it becomes much easier. It's like having a shopping list. Okay, so I'll focus on, this is what my child needs from me. And even if I'm feeling really tired or really overwhelmed, it's much easier to make that little bit of time and headspace. So John, we haven't spoke about it, but I'm wondering if I can share my screen.
Yeah, okay. Let me just allow you to share your screen. Multiple participants, yes, you can share it. You should be able to share it now, actually.
Okay.
So give us a checklist. Yeah. I think. Okay. Yes, a circle of security. Thank you. Yeah.
Let me just see. Maybe I'll make it a little bit bigger. So here is the Circle of Security created by the Circle of Security International team. And you can just Google Circle of Security and this graphic will come up. It's widely available. But what I love about it is the Circle of Security team, they looked at 50 years of attachment research. And they sifted through the scientific journals that are really hard to read and full of jargon. And they created this graphic that any parent can just look and understand and relate to straight away. So what I will do, I will talk through those needs, and then so if we can also think specifically in terms of how those needs can be met.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to spend the last 10-15 minutes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, let's go for it.
So we have so there are three main parts to this circle, three main attachment needs that every child has. Secure base and safe haven. So that is children's parents and other people that they trust in their lives. It can be a childminder, a teacher, a grandparent, a neighbor, whoever has built that trusting relationship with the child. And then when the child is with that parent, they move in circles. And I'm sure for parents listening, you've seen it over and over in your children. When children are feeling safe and settled, they go out to explore. They want to play, they want to engage with something, read, or whatever their interests are. They want to engage with that and sort of learn new skills. And so that's the top of the circle. And then, John, can you see my arrow?
I can see it very clearly.
Yeah. I just didn't want to see. So at some point they come to this transition point where they've had enough. They might be tired or hungry or overwhelmed, or things don't make sense. And then emotionally that sort of impulse to go out and connect with something outside it changes the direction to the impulse to come back and connect. So we call, so top of the circle is exploration, bottom of the circle is comfort. And really that's through that connection. This is how we fill up our children's emotional cups. And then after a while, they're ready to go on another circle.
I like that model. It's very clear. It gives parents a really clear direction, guide, if you like, map, if you like.
Yes. So, and so now, if again, for parents listening, if you think about your child, so let's start with the top of the circle, supporting the child's exploration, because this is kind of the least vital need. And especially if the relationship is a little bit tricky, it's the easiest point of creating those connections with the child. So thinking about, okay, and I know, especially if you're focusing so much of supporting your child through separation, it can sound strange, like, why do I think about their interests? Because it's not related. But actually, the way I see it, it's important to think about the whole child. And like, so managing separation, of course, is really important, but that it's like one slice of pizza. But then there's other slices of pizza that are really important for the child. And if their interests are supported through that period, it will help them feel seen, known, understood, secure. So that's why it's really helpful to think about their interests. And even like whilst watching this video, you can pause it and think, okay, you know, is my child crafty or sporty or both? Or do they like hanging out with their friends? And how can I support and enable that?
Yeah, no. What are they needing? What's important to them? Are they missing out on their clubs? How is our separation? The parents can be saying impacting on the kids, which is what are they missing out on, which is affecting them? Why are they behaving in this way at school? Or no, and it could be something. It could be something quite straightforward if one looks at it from that particular child's perspective. Just something like, I don't know, it could be, as you said, a hobby they're missing out on, or seeing their friends as much as they would like, or I don't know, it could be a number of things, couldn't it? Yeah. And reminding ourselves as parents to very much take that perspective, that child perspective. No, very important, very important.
I love how you kind of really connected with the word straightforward that you said there, because it's not a rocket science, but again, in the intensity of this period in life, those things can just so easily fall through the cracks.
It's just a reminder, isn't it? This is again, it's like a map to remind us as parents of the various, because we've got so much things we're focusing on and being distracted by. Again, this helps us to focus on the children and the children's needs. And of course, I know you'll be coming back to the two hands, the parental needs to support each other as well. Yeah, Una, so keep us going around, if you don't mind, around this.
Yeah, absolutely. So bottom of the circle, children can be quite emotional, overwhelmed, confused, or they just might comfort. And it can be quite tricky to kind of meet that need for connection and welcome their emotions. I think especially when you're going through so much, and also for parents, and I can definitely relate to that, there can be feelings of, well, I failed to give my child that family that I was hoping to, and I'm letting them down. And then on the back of that, really needing to see that your child is okay. And when they're not okay, and it might be not even sort of directly related to the separation, it can be so hard to still be present and welcome.
Available. Yes, so available. Yeah.
And so again, I think acknowledging that it's hard can be helpful, just normalize it. And then in terms of like how to welcome children at the bottom of the circle. So sometimes just having that, just knowing, okay, they're at the bottom of the circle, they need me to welcome them, can be helpful. Another thing is having support for you and your emotions, like mediation or therapy or counseling, where where you can go, like in a way, when you're at the bottom of the circle, you have the hands that are holding you, then it's easier to offer that to the children. And often, I was going to say just, but it's not just being there, listening, asking questions, acknowledging how they're feeling, what they're going through. That can be enough to fill up their cup and for them to feel comforted and protected, and that they're getting that help to organize their feelings that they need.
Creating that, again, coming up that time, creating that focused time to be there, to, I like that word, receive, to receive what's coming from your child, to be connected, to connect with them. And of course that can take a lot from a parent when they may be feeling their own lives are in chaos and disruption and so much to focus on, to be available to connect with and receive the children, to really hear them and what's going on, and to interact with them. It sounds very straightforward, and most times go, well, I do that. It can be so difficult when so much is, because we're talking about the process of separation, when so much is going on. These parents. Yeah, and then they move around too. Protect, comfort, delight, organize. Yeah. Can you say that? Yeah.
So then we move to the pair of hands, and that is, you'll see the bottom, I don't know, on my screen, bottom right.
Yes.
Always be bigger, stronger, wiser, and kind. And I know it sounds like a tall order, but I think we all find our own of kind of what it means, like kind of almost like an embodied version, what it kind of, when do I know that I'm there for my child and being their secure base? What does that feel like for me? And again, research shows that so the most important, the most supportive factor in creating those secure attachments is parents' sense of security. And often it gets undermined when we go through separation. So having that support, and also thinking about who was your secure base when you were growing up. A parent, a grandparent, a teacher, who you kind of, what comes up, who comes up when you think about that, and then thinking about what was about them, how they were with you, that helped you feel safe with them. And just kind of, okay, how I'm going to channel that person into my parenting.
Getting back in touch with that, but by thinking about who was there for you when you were a child, gets you back in touch, perhaps with more connected with what your child might be needing from you. Yeah, no, that's excellent. Can I? I'm just conscious a little bit of time, Una. Can we bring each other back onto the screen?
Yes.
So just to remind viewers, you can get because many of you might be thinking that's an excellent model and so on. And Una's mentioned it. You can find it, I'm sure, on your website as well, Una, and on mine as well, and various places, but on Google, Circle of Security. No, that's really, really useful. So as we kind of bring this our chat, and it always has to come to an end too soon, in my view, always too soon. So I always ask these two questions, and often ask these questions in my mediation, actually, but ask these questions for you today. Is there anything you would like on the topic we're talking about, our separating parent viewers to hear, to listen to, or to hear from you? Anything that you find really useful, as we draw this chat to an end?
It's never too late to get back on the circle, regardless of what's gone on. And, if you had a bad day, it's never too late to think, okay, exploration, comfort, what does my child need? How can I show up as a secure base for them today?
Never too late. No, that is such an important message, isn't it? Because, I don't know about you, but I certainly hear many parents saying to me, or using words and language like, I'm feeling lost, I'm feeling stuck, I'm feeling afloat, adrift in themselves. And when the parent is feeling like that, actually to lose sight, again in language again, is losing sight of the children, or losing sight of themselves, actually, because we talked about this. And maybe there's one theme I'm picking up from this is a parent's sense of security is directly connected with their child's sense of security, which is directly connected with a parent's sense of security, this interconnectedness. And so it is the whole holistic picture we're talking about here. And so the parents really needs to be tuned in very difficult situations with each other's, what each other are needing to feel secure, so that they can meet their child's sense of security. And using this circle model that we've circle of needs model that we're talking about, the security model, is a really good map, a really good model. But thank you very much. I'm not here, my viewers aren't here to hear me whittle on, that's for sure. So I mean, it's been great talking to you. I think there's some really important information and messages have come from our conversation. So I'd like to thank you again for your time. And we've done this before, and I'm sure we'll be doing it again, because there's so much I can learn from you, and so much that separating parents and children can learn from you. If they do want to find you, on a final note, before I kind of say goodbye, if they do want to find you, where can they find you? Where can someone who's watching this thinking, I need you, I need your services, where can they, apart from our website, where you are, by the way, you're part of the support team, but what about you? Where can they find you?
Yes. So on your website, and my website is helpyourchildthrive.co.uk. You can find, you can book an initial consultation. You can find all the most up-to-date information about the courses that I run. So that's the go-to place.
Help the Child Thrive. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And John, it's been my pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me today.
No, you're very welcome. Thank you. And I'll see you very, very soon. Bye for now. Bye-bye.
Okay.